bodies started turning up along rural forest roads, one after another. No witnesses, no link between them, no clear pattern. Bodies of women were found along forest roads, one after another. No witnesses, no link between them, no clear pattern. While investigators tried to understand what they were dealing with, the killer was already moving freely across post-war Europe. He targeted women traveling alone, remote roads, where no one would hear a scream, and a time when disappearances could be buried in chaos. Months later, police would arrest a man who calmly told investigators, "You didn't find them all." In post-war Germany, people could disappear without ever leaving a trace in the system. Control existed on paper, not in reality. After World War II, Germany was in total collapse. Cities destroyed, train stations overcrowded, thousands of people without papers or fixed addresses. Women often traveled alone, looking for family, trading belongings for food, searching for work, returning from evacuation. Most rural routes ran through forests and empty stretches of land. At night, these roads were nearly deserted. Police control was limited. The country was divided into occupation zones, and communication between regions was weak. If someone disappeared on the road, it didn't always raise alarm. That chaos would later give the killer exactly what he needed. At first, the cases looked unrelated, isolated, random. Only later did a pattern begin to emerge. In 1946, police began discovering women's bodies in Lower Saxony and nearby regions. Most victims had been killed by blunt force to the head. Some bodies were found near forest roads, others weeks after they disappeared. Very little was left behind. At first, investigators did not believe they were dealing with a serial killer. After the war, violence and theft were common. Many cases were treated as simple robbery or random crime. But slowly, investigators began seeing a pattern. Same type of victims, same type of injuries, attacks near rural roads. A connection began to form. Traveling alone wasn't just risky anymore, it was exposure. Outside the cities, there was no real protection. Almost all victims were alone on the road. That was the key detail. Post-war Germany had very little transportation and widespread poverty. Hitchhiking and walking between towns became normal. Some of the most dangerous routes ran through the forests of Lower Saxony. Women were traveling for black market trade, family visits, food, temporary shelter. Many disappearances were not reported right away. The killer understood that perfectly. In that environment, someone could vanish and no one would react in time. The problem wasn't evidence, it was fragmentation. Each case existed in isolation, like separate pieces that never connected. By late 1946, police suspected a series, but the investigation barely moved. The system had collapsed, destroyed record-keeping, severe lack of personnel, no coordination between regions. Different departments investigated similar murders separately. At one point, investigators even believed there might be multiple offenders. In the crowd of post-war Germany, he didn't stand out at all. That invisibility is what made him impossible to track. At the same time, a young man was moving across the country. His name was Rudolf Pleil. He was born in 1924 in Saxony. He came from a poor family and suffered from epilepsy. After the war, he lived unstable and without steady work. Nothing about him drew attention. Just another man trying to survive post-war Germany. That detail would later become one of the most disturbing parts of the case. He did not look dangerous. He chose places where no one was watching. Distance from witnesses was part of the method. Investigators later determined he understood the terrain well. He selected forest roads, low traffic routes, paths between villages. Sometimes he met women on the road. Sometimes he offered help or company. After the attacks, he took money, clothing, personal belongings. Robbery was part of the pattern. Some attacks also involved sexual violence. One key detail emerged later: he did not always act alone. Investigators identified accomplices in certain cases that allowed faster attacks, moving stolen items, escape after the crime. Some incidents looked like they involved completely different offenders. Fear started changing how people moved across the country. Entire routes were quietly abandoned. As the killings continued, fear spread. Women stopped traveling alone. People avoided forest roads. Authorities warned civilians to be cautious between towns. But control was limited. Too many roads, too few officers, and the killer kept moving freely between regions. One mistake is never just one mistake. It repeats, and repetition leaves a trail. Despite caution, Pleel began making errors. Witnesses reported seeing the same man near victims shortly before they disappeared. Stolen items were later linked back to suspects. The investigation tightened. In 1947, police arrested Rudolf Pleel. The confession expanded the case beyond anything in the files. Suddenly, the crimes outnumbered the documented evidence. After his arrest, everything changed. Pleel began describing the crimes in detail. Investigators were struck by how calm he remained. He described routes, locations, injuries, body positions. Some of the details were known only to police and the killer. During interrogation, he claimed he had killed more than 20 people. It was far beyond what investigators expected. The more he talked, the less could be proven. Confession and reality stopped aligning. Investigators quickly ran into a problem. They could not verify everything he said. Post-war chaos had destroyed evidence. Some disappearances were never officially recorded. Some bodies were never recovered. Only about 10 murders could be confirmed. The actual number remains unknown. Some experts believe his confession was exaggerated. Others believe more victims did exist. He spoke about death like it was routine. No emotion, no hesitation. During questioning, Pleel remained calm. He described the crimes without emotional reaction. A psychiatric evaluation found him legally sane. That meant he fully understood his actions. A critical point for trial. The trial was built on fragments, not a complete picture. Justice had to work with missing pieces. The trial took place in the late 1940s. It became one of the most widely discussed cases in post-war Germany. Public shock wasn't only about the killings, it was about something else. A killer operating more efficiently than the system meant to stop him. The prosecution relied on confessions, witness testimony, physical evidence, case correlations. Rudolf Pleel was sentenced to life in prison. The case exposed how systems fail under collapse and how crime adapts faster than recovery. This became one of the earliest major serial murder cases in post-war Germany. Pleel had no status, no connections, no influence. His advantage was timing. A broken infrastructure, mass displacement, weak coordination between regions, a system too damaged to see patterns clearly. Later criminologists would study this case as an example of how institutional collapse creates blind spots for crime. Even after conviction, parts of the story never fully closed. Some answers were lost before they were ever found. Rudolf Pleil served his sentence in Celle prison. In 1958, he died by suicide in his cell. He was 33 years old, but the case never fully ended. Some victims were never identified. Some disappearances were never explained. That is what keeps this case unsettling. A broken system allowed a killer to move through thousands of people unseen. And not all of his victims may have ever been found.